and welcome to Maranatha. I'm Gene Markland.
And I'm Martha Markland.
And we're glad you joined us
Yes.
tonight. We've got a very exciting program lined up, don't we, Martha?
We sure do. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'll just go ahead and tell them. We're going to have Ron Wyatt with us, and if you've been reading your papers within the last couple of months, you might recognize his name. Him and his sons were held in Saudi Arabia. They're archaeologists, and they were over there looking around for a lot of things that the Bible talks about and we just hear about. Well, he got to see some of them, and he's going to be talking to us about them. It's real exciting.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about things like Noah's Ark,
Yes.
the pyramids, Mount Sinai, the Red Sea, where they crossed the Red Sea,
Covenant of the Ark.
the Ark of the Covenant,
Giants. Remains of giants.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exciting.
Just a lot of things. We've got some drawings and pictures for you, and,
Yes.
and just a lot of real neat things for you. Also, we have with us Ann Lobdell, who will be singing a couple of songs for us, and of course Nancy White
Yes.
is here. And
This is our 4th of July program.
4th of July program.
Yes, it'll air the 6th, but we're taping it on the 29th, so it's really 4th of July falls in between, so we've got some patriotic songs for you tonight.
Right now, why don't we go to a song?
Yes.
Ann Lobdell is going to sing a song called I'll Never Know.
Yes.
Ann Lobdell.
It's a lovely day.
That was Ann Lobdell.
Yes,
And
she'll be back.
Chris, her husband, produced and arranged that song and the song she's going to sing later on in the program.
Yes.
Also, Nancy Wyatt will be here in a few moments to sing a couple of songs. But right now, we have Ron Wyatt. Ron,
Hi,
welcome to
glad
Maranatha.
to meet you, Jack. Thanks.
Glad you're here.
Yes.
Now, you've been on, I say, Good Morning America, and what are some of the other programs?
CBS Morning News.
Morning News. I mean, a lot of people wanted to hear what happened to you. You and your sons were doing work in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yes, right.
And tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, we had permission from the local officials to investigate a mountain that our research indicated was the real Mount Sinai, where the law was given, the Ten Commandments. And we were proceeding to do this in what we felt was an orderly manner. And we apparently got close to some missiles that were
I see.
either being transported to the area or set up in the area. At least this is what the State Department said. And when we got ready to exit the country, at customs they arrested us.
Okay, now who arrested you?
The Coast Guard is in charge of customs, and they were the ones that arrested us.
Okay, now when they arrested you, where did they take you?
They took us down to their Coast Guard headquarters, and we met some people there that were quite friendly at first, but we found that they weren't all this friendly. We went through some 3 different periods of interrogation. And the first was by this Coast Guard group. They had a general there that was commanding this, and he interviewed us or interrogated us through an interpreter. And I've never yet been quite convinced that the interpreter told him
What you were
What you were
telling us.
saying.
Right, yes. But anyway, after that, then we were interrogated by the General Investigating Office that was in charge of that area. I think their office is in Tobuk. And then after that, they sent some people out from the ministry. This is the kings from Riyadh, you know, the seat of the government, and had a few questions for us too. And during this time, of course, they kept us separated so we couldn't get our stories together or whatever.
Right. Now,
But-
how long were you held?
78 days total.
And what did it feel like? I mean, did you feel like you were going to be in there forever?
Well, there were times when it looked that way, right. In my archaeological research, I always pray about whether I should go, you know, on a trip and if I will be successful before I go. And I asked for a little sign, you know. This is the only way I have of communicating with God. He doesn't speak to me, you know, like he did to Abraham, some of those folks. But anyway, I was assured that, you know, we would find the mountain and that we would get back safely, my sons and I. So when I wasn't being harassed too severely, I could, you know, be at peace with this in mind. But there were a few times you know, when this didn't seem too likely that we would get out.
Now, who got you out? How did you get out?
Well, they didn't tell us a whole lot. We were held incommunicado. They declined allowing us to talk with a representative of our government, which international law requires that they do. And so we were pretty much in the dark. They would, after the preliminary or the main interrogation, periodically they would take one or the other of us up to this head honcho's office and ask us a few more questions. And I think they were getting these questions from their archaeology department. They were seeing if we really were archaeologists or if we were Israeli spies, which is what they accused us of being.
So you were getting ready to leave the country when they stopped you, right? Were you like get ready to get on your plane? Going through
Well,
customs or
we had come into Jordan and into Amman and then flown down to Aqaba, and this is about 10 miles from the Saudi Arabian border. So we went through at that point, and we were exiting at that point until this event.
I see.
Anyway, back to the other question. I'm not sure who got us out. Some people talked to Congressman Boner's office, and I understand that he put some pressure on. I met him down to the airport the other day and thanked him in person.
Yeah.
And there was some congressmen and senators from Kentucky. I have some relatives there. And some friends, James Irwin, one of the astronauts. We had discussed archaeology quite a bit and were planning to do some things together. He was aware that we were over there, and unofficially he had some people in some other governments put a little pressure on, and so something worked. One day they came to us and said, "You're going home today."
I see. That was some ordeal, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, what'd you find over there?
Well, in Numbers 24:4, for the people in the audience that are Bible scholars, it says that Moses rose up early in the morning and set up 12 pillars of stone and erected an altar. All right, we felt that this would still be there because people in that part of the country, the Bedouins and a lot of these people, their agreements, instead of being on paper, they set up these little things of stone, which apparently they have some means of interpreting what these little stacks of stones mean. And so all these things are left alone. They're not necessarily sacred, but they are just things that, you know, people do not bother. We felt that there was a high likelihood that those stones would still be there, and so we found those. And they appeared to be intact. There had been some sand blown in over up partway on the north end of the altar and some of the stones on that end. And one of the stones had been tipped over against another, but there's 12 stones sitting there in a half circle in the altar right in the mouth of it. And this is facing east because God was quite particular that his people did not worship the rising sun, and that their backs were to that. And that was quite a thrill to see that.
And how long have you been doing archaeology?
Well, I've been an armchair archaeologist like a lot of people for more years than I'll mention, but we started making field trips in 1976. And so we have averaged probably 2 to 3 trips a year since that time.
Oh, I see. And as far as the funding and things like this, do you just finance yourself, or is there a group maybe that donations or anything like that?
Well, we pretty well finance ourselves. I'm a nurse anesthetist, and we make a fairly good salary.
You're a what?
A nurse anesthetist. I put people to sleep for surgery.
I see. Okay.
Right. And so I just save my own money mostly. There have been some people that have helped, and we, you know, appreciate that. And so basically what we do, we work, and when we get some money ahead, then we go on a trip. And it's always quite a thrill to me. I freelance. Primarily I work at Nashville Memorial Hospital out in Madison on Due West. But I do freelance, some at Baptist Hospital and other hospitals. And so people start calling me, and I start getting all kinds of work. Something tells me that it's about time for another trip.
The Lord
That's the
lets
way
you
it
know
always
that.
works out, yeah.
Well, we're about ready for a song, I believe. And but before we do that, I want to say that we're going to have some drawings, right? Some pictures
Yes,
we're going to
we have
show
some.
in a few moments, and also we've got a videotape that we're going to insert, and we're going to talk about the pyramids. We've got in the videotape, we've got the he's the head.
The director of antiquities.
The director of antiquities
For Egypt.
in Egypt, and he's going to talk. He's going to give his credibility to the fact that they have just discovered what they think is the machine that they used to build the pyramids, and we've got a piece of that on videotape too.
Yes.
But right now, I think Nancy White is going to sing, and she's going to sing a beautiful song that everybody knows that goes right along with Ron here getting out of prison over there. It's called "God Bless America." Nancy White.
And must say, God bless America. I'm so proud to live in the USA. And as Ron was talking, I can't imagine being away from America like that 5 days, much less 78. And I know he's so proud to be back home, and I am too. And I'd just like to sing, God bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet
All right, Nancy White.
Yes.
That was great, wasn't it? She's got another one coming up in a few minutes. It's really going to
Yeah.
take you off in a blast.
Like fireworks.
Okay, what should we talk about first? Should we talk about the pyramids or the ark? Let's talk about the ark.
Okay, could I say why I'm into this, just briefly?
Well, let me ask you, why are you into this, Ron?
Okay, thank you, Gene. During the last centuries of the Christian era, most people, if they didn't get run over by a truck or something, had a lifetime to develop a relationship with God. Okay, it's my feeling from studying the Bible that we are in a rehabilitation program, and if we cooperate with God, He will work on our characters and make us fit to live in a sinless universe. All right, so I do believe now that we're living in the last generation, and I don't have time to go into the reasons why, but many other people agree with this idea. And so I feel that now everybody, all ages, are going to have to learn to walk with God now. They don't have a lifetime. And we have a lot of people, honest people, that don't go to churches. We have a lot of honest people in churches. We have a lot of honest people even in Saudi Arabia. And these people over there are not allowed to hear any of this, about the Bible in our sense of the word. So I believe that God has preserved little time capsules of information from Old Testament times, and that these are in caves, they're under the sea, they are in the pyramids and different places, and that at this time He's going to bring them out, and He wants a particular story told with these. If there's anything I've been impressed about, it's that you cannot find any of these major items without you go to God and allow Him to help you get the story straight that He wants told with them. And so anyway, this is the motivation behind
Let's
this.
see, and at this time He's going to reveal these pieces to give us physical evidence.
Right, yes.
On top of everything else.
Right. A lot of people say that doesn't demonstrate a lot of faith, but if you're facing a machine gun or something like this, and and somebody, things are a little bit different. It takes a little different faith there than it does to get up in church and testify and tell how much faith you've got.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people will be very surprised when their faith is put to a test if they, if they don't have the real faith. And so I believe that God, in His care for His children here, has designed this so that we can hear with our ears, we can see with our eyes, and we can feel with our hands, and that we can really have faith and confidence in Him and the plans He has for us.
Well, I believe that He's patient with us, and He understands those who doubt. Jesus understood Thomas when he had to feel the scars in his side.
Right.
And He let him feel them.
That's right.
And that's because He allows for us. He knows we're human and we're going to doubt.
Yeah, He
and
gave Thomas
have to
physical
have
evidence.
faith.
Sure did.
Yes, He did.
He sure did.
So why not leave a little bit out for us in this generation?
Right.
We've got, well, there's several pictures. Why don't you hand those around here? Let's talk about some of the things.
Yeah,
Now,
these are on Noah's Ark. This is the first thing we went to work on. Well, let's
Is this
see.
one?
This one's on the
This first one I
pyramids
picked
here.
up.
Okay,
Yeah.
just give me another one. Give me another one.
Okay.
Yeah, just say that.
Noah's,
for a second.
okay, Noah's Ark. Have you found Noah's Ark?
I think so. Yes.
You think so? Okay.
Yes.
What have you found? Have you found pieces of it, or have you found indentations where it was, or what?
All right. Now, I have a little book here that I wrote, and I'm working on a large book. You can hold that, if you will.
Okay.
That's called Diary of Planet Earth, and it starts out with creation, and it goes through every question you ever wanted to ask and didn't know who to ask it of. And anyway, these are little segments out of that book. And on Noah's Ark, in 1957, they were making an aerial survey, and they found what looked like a ship-shaped object in the foothills of Mount Ararat.
Now where's Mount Ararat? Turkey?
Turkey, eastern Turkey. It's a chain of mountains just like the Cumberland Mountains, Smoky Mountains, or whatever. All right, now all of the sentiments and legends and all of this say that it's on Agradal, or Mount Ararat. That mountain, if anybody has seen an active volcano, the crater up there, that lake that they say they see this wooden boat frozen in, was once a cauldron of 2,000-degree Fahrenheit boiling lava. All right. Now, while God can preserve things in that kind of atmosphere, and He did the 3 Hebrew children, normally He allows the laws of nature to prevail, and these are His laws.
His laws.
Right. So the last several thousand feet of that mountain have been accumulated lava, much this side of the time of the flood. And so I don't feel that it's very logical to think a wooden boat survived up there. Further, this is 35 miles out into the plain, out of the mountains of Ararat, where the Bible said it was. Okay? And so this object was in the foothills of Tindrick in a lava flow, and we found an object that is the exact length of the biblical ark based on...
Okay, now, should I show this one first, or this?
Why not this one?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now then, we found a boat-shaped object, and it doesn't look like this, believe me. It's all decayed, and it probably burnt at one time, because the width is greater than the biblical dimensions. The length is the same, but the width is greater. And on a boat, when it decays or burns, the gunwales fall outwards. So you would have to expect that it would be wider on this aspect. All right, my research showed that the Egyptian cubit of the 18th dynasty, which I believe was Moses' period in Egyptian history, we don't have time to substantiate that, but based on that, this is the exact dimensions that you could expect. Now, what is left there, we took core samples out of this to get the depth of it, to give us where the upper stories began. See, the Bible gives the width, the height, and that it was 3-storied. The information we don't have is where this, the top configuration of the boat. Now, in some of the ancient histories that we have, Herodotus and Josephus and some of these, the wood from this ark was considered sacred, and it was supposed to have healing qualities, and so people would pay money for this, to get a chunk of this to carry as an amulet.
Amulet.
There you go. And so anyway, we believe that people took this thing apart and literally carried it off piece by piece.
So this looked like the Ark junkyard, I guess, back in that time.
Probably at some point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and that would show. This picture shows what it would look like after pieces of it had been taken away.
Right.
Much like some of the pyramid pieces were taken away too.
Yes. Yes. Most of these things from antiquity, people have come along and helped themselves to the remains for their own whatever purposes they have.
Now this picture here, Ron, is this of how the Ark was built?
No, this has to do with the pyramids.
Oh, that's the pyramids.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the pyramid story.
All this ancient work looks like to
Yep.
me. Okay.
Well, now, all the stories they've had on we found the Ark, and, you know, we've heard a lot over the last few years about it. So are you saying you disagree with that?
Yes, I do. There has been some detective work. Now, a lot of people, they think God and the Bible is sacred, and I agree with that, you know. But in Isaiah, God says, "Come now and let us reason together." Okay. Now, I believe that He wants us to use the intelligence that He gave us to, shall we say, prevent ourselves accepting a snow job for a fact. All right. Now, Navarra, who supposedly found a chunk of wood from Noah's Ark, it's known fact that he bought a piece of wood from an old farmer that was in the bottom of his barn, buried in the dirt. He carried this up on the mountain, lowered it down in the crevasse on a rope, and then had his son film it as he pulled it out. Okay, and these people that are still alive that say they have seen the Ark, they have been interviewed on tape, and a PSE machine. It measures the tremors in the voice, and it can tell if you're telling the truth or not. All right, and the only person of all of these people that say they saw the Ark was Hagopian, and he was a 9-year-old shepherd boy, and he said he went with his uncle to take care of the sheep, and his uncle set him up on this big rock and said, "Play up there, that's Noah's Ark." To that point, he's telling the truth. Then he says, "I found an opening in the top, and I looked down and saw cages." At that point, he's lying. So it appears that his story, you know, if people gather in to hear your story about Noah's Ark and all you can say is, "My uncle set me up on this rock and said, play there, that's Noah's Ark," well, everybody's a little disappointed.
Yeah.
So the story, there's a little
Embellished it a little bit.
pressure to embellish your story.
Yeah.
And so this is what has happened over the years. And also, people like to get their attention, and also they like to get money to go on these, you know, trips. And there's a different motivation for this. And so what we've tried to do is approach this thing in a manner of prove it to yourself that this is real. And then a lot of the people out there can accept that too, because, you know, if you have taken pains on this. So we took core samples. We took this over to Galbraith Laboratories in Knoxville, hand carried it over there. We numbered the specimens. We took one from out in the countryside.
Are you taking pieces of wood you're talking about?
Well, dirt's all that's left, and petrified wood. There's tons of petrified wood on the lower end of this artifact, okay? And so this, they ran mineral analysis on, and it proved that it was wood, okay? And we compared that with a sample that we took out of just a field, away from this boat-shaped object. And so with that, and with the petrified wood that we found, and we found some other objects. I don't know if you can show this sea anchor that we brought a picture of. But these boats, like Noah's Ark, didn't have to go anywhere, but it did have to stay afloat during this violent storm.
Okay, we're looking at it on our screen right now, Ron.
All right.
Can you explain maybe what the crosses were there for?
These crosses are stylized crosses, and they are identical to the crosses that the Crusaders left in many sites in the path, you know, from Europe over to rescue Jerusalem. And there are tombstones also. Now, I have it on 16 millimeter and Super 8, but I don't have it on video yet. But this is what you call an iconograph, okay? And it represents a man, his wife, his 3 sons, and his 3 daughters are daughters-in-law.
So each of those crosses represent those individuals. I see.
Right. And
now this is an anchor. This is an anchor that you believe they used on the Ark.
Now, people that do a lot of sailing, If a storm hits and you're out where you can't get into safety, you have to put some sort of a sea anchor out the back of the boat so that the current flowing against that will keep the nose right into the oncoming waves. All right, I believe that this and a twin of it, there's two of these, were placed on cords and dropped over the back of the ark, and that the current flowing against that acted as a sea anchor just to keep the nose directed into the waves so the thing wouldn't turn sideways, you know, and founder in the water. And also it would be a very miserable ride in there if, you know, if you didn't have a little advantage of the boat pointing in the right direction. So, and then we found some tombstones in hieroglyphics on the bottom of one of these tombstones. It shows a boat on top of a giant wave. It shows 8 people walking away from this. Shows the largest person, and in hieroglyphs that means he's the leader or the most important one. Shows his face down and his eyes closed, which means death in Hurite and Cretan hieroglyphics. And so we believe that that is where Moses died, and not Moses, excuse me.
No.
We don't want to get Moses on Noah's Ark.
Moses, what I mean.
Right, but we think this is probably where Noah died.
Noah died.
Now, we haven't excavated there, but James Irwin is planning to go back there this summer and investigate this object. And due to all the many legends and everything about it being on Mount Ararat, he's expending a lot of time, effort, and money to either prove that it is or is not on the mountain.
Are you talking about James Irwin, the astronaut?
The astronaut, yes.
I see.
And what is hieroglyphics?
Well, hieroglyphics is picture writing. I believe that this was developed when the languages were confused at Babel. Like, for example, in Saudi Arabia or anywhere you might go where you don't speak the language, you can use sign language. Okay, but if you're sending a message to somebody that is away from you, then you can tell them by drawing pictures. It's a kind of a comic strip sort of thing. And so this was later refined down to a shorthand version, which is, of course, your Egyptian hieroglyphics. And the cuneiform is actually a modified pictograph also.
That's interesting. That's a lot right there.
Yes, it
Are we
is.
ready for a song? Oh, we're ready for the tape. Okay, we haven't got onto that yet. We do have a tape of the about the pyramids. We haven't got onto the pyramids yet, but before we move on to that, I guess the hieroglyphics you're talking about would carry us right into that, because they used the hieroglyphics in the pyramids. Now, did you investigate? I mean, did you go into these pyramids and investigate, or what was the purpose of the investigation of the pyramids?
Well, that is not as closely associated with the Bible as most of our projects, but at the time we were working on these things, Van Doniken's book came out, and he said that early man did not have the technology to build these structures, and that people from outer space had come and helped them. Makes a wonderful story. We felt that that wasn't quite true, and so anyway we started investigating this, and in Herodotus's histories he went to several of the towns in ancient Egypt in the 5th century BC and inquired of the people that were caretakers of these structures, the priests. And they read from the hieroglyphs and told him how they were built, that they had been built in tiers or steps, and that they used a contrivance, in our language that would be a mechanism or a machine, built of sturdy timbers used as levers, and that they placed one of these on the ground, one up on the next level, and one up on the next level, and that they passed these stones from one machine to the one on the next level and then up to the next. Okay. Now then.
So they didn't take them on logs and roll them around and stuff?
Maybe to some extent, you know, in the lower levels of their work, and they maybe even used some sand ramps at the lower levels. But the Japanese proved, I think it was in '79, that this would not work. They attempted to build a pyramid, and the Japanese are fantastic people when it comes to doing things. And if they couldn't build a pyramid, I don't hold out too much hopes for anybody else doing that. But anyway, we went to the pyramids, and also there's no end of hieroglyphics that are available in libraries and books and articles and things. And so on the pyramids and in the pyramids, there's a little set of hieroglyphs which I could have brought a picture of, but I didn't. Maybe they can see it later. But it says that this particular pharaoh died. It has his cartouche on the side, which meant, you know, that he's no longer alive, and that they buried him and built him a tomb. The tomb picture is a pyramid, and it shows 3 pictographs of a portion of these machines, these levered machines. And so anyway, from the information in Herodotus's histories and from these hieroglyphics, we built working models of a machine that will lift these stones. And we have this, it'll be on this clip. We took this to the Director of Antiquities, Mr. Nisaf Muhammad Hassan, and he was delighted with this. He gave us blanket permission to excavate anywhere in Egypt, which we thought was very nice of him.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And he didn't throw you in jail either, did he?
No, we appreciated that.
Yeah.
We didn't know how much until later when somebody else did. But since we were over there, we have developed a little modification of this, and in the museum in Cairo, there's actual timbers off of these levered machines that they found in one of the chambers. It was found with the sun boat. They thought it was another boat, but they could never get it together. So when we saw it, it is levers from this machine. And this machine will lift, not this one, but a modification of it, will lift a stone, say 100 tons, 200 feet straight into the air.
Wow.
Okay.
That is incredible.
Now that will sound far-fetched to you and the audience,
incredible.
okay? But we are going to erect one of these in our backyard, if not someplace, you know, else, be more convenient. And we're going to do this and put it on our documentary.
You can lift your house all the way up.
Well,
have a high rise.
right.
Okay, well, let's go to that tape right now. And for those of you at home watching, the audio portion of this might not be as clear as what you're hearing from us, but listen carefully to Mr. Hassan, is it?
Mr. Hassan.
Mr. Hassan, right now.
I think that the old Egyptian used some cranes, and now I am very glad to see that this machine, which Mr. Wyatt showed me, and I think maybe they used something like that, because there in hieroglyphs we know that this cartouche of Onis tomb in the western side of the Great Pyramid, and also this letter means Nefer, means the beautiful, and these 3 little signs exactly maybe show us another machine or another parts of machine or something like that, maybe of wood or maybe of anything else. And when I read about this machine which they used, I think it is suitable for lift each block for a stage to another, and they used many machines in order to lift these blocks of wood, and it is suitable for huge blocks of granite and for limestone. And the treatment which I have seen on the television or something here at Egypt, and it is a suitable thing to lift.
Well, that was Mr. Hassan from over in Egypt talking about that machine that lifts these rocks up, and we could really do a lot of conversation about that if we had more time.
Yeah, but one question that I do want to know is where they got the trees from, because if they're in Egypt and all, I didn't think there was that many trees over there.
Well, we'll ask Ron that in just a moment. We'll be back with Ron Wyatt in just a moment, but first, Ann Lobdell is here to sing another song, and she's going to sing a song called Light Shining Through the Darkness. Ann Lobdell. That was Ann Lobdell.
Yes.
And we appreciate her being with us
And
tonight.
we thank Mabel Birdsong for sending her.
Yes.
us.
And in a few moments, Nancy will be here to sing the Star Spangled Banner. Boy, she's going to bust it loose. Right now, we're back with Ron Wyatt. Now, Ron, your next mission, or so to speak, is, or one of the next things you're going to do pretty soon, is to uncover the lost Ark of the Covenant, correct?
Yes.
Now, you've located what you believe is the place where it's at?
Yes. There's a lot of people today that would tell you they know where the Ark of the Covenant is, okay? And I'm one of those people. I would stake my life on the fact that I know where the Ark of the Covenant is.
Where is it, Ron? Tell me.
Are there a lot of
We're dying to
snakes?
know.
Okay. There's a lot of research goes into all of these things, okay? Here tonight we just touch on them briefly, and I don't really expect people to believe everything they hear tonight. While it is true, they haven't heard all the evidence, okay? Now, the Ark vanished during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem. And there are some legends, and like, for example, in the book of Maccabees, second Maccabees, second chapter, the 8th through the 15th verses, says it was hidden on Nebo in a cave dwelling, okay? There's some other legends that says it was hid under the city. There's legends that says it was hidden on Mount Horeb. A lot of legends. All right, the facts in the case are that when the Babylonians put Jerusalem under siege, they built stone siege walls around the city just out of reach of the catapults from inside the city. All right. Now then, while God could have blinded the people that kept the gate on the siege wall and allowed the Ark to pass, it is more likely that he did not, okay, that he allowed events to proceed by natural means. Now then, we do not know where that siege wall was placed. None of it has survived that we know of. But in AD 70, Titus, the Roman commander, later to be emperor of Rome, put Jerusalem under siege, and he built siege walls around the cities. All right. Now, since the catapults that were used by the Jews in Jerusalem in Nebuchadnezzar's time, when the Babylonians had it under siege, were approximately the very same type of machines that the Jews used when Titus had them under siege, I don't believe we're doing violence to reality to say that the siege walls would have been approximately the same distance from the city. All right. Now, some of these siege walls from Titus' time have survived. We know where they are. All right. The whole of the walls of the city of ancient Jerusalem were visible to the guards along the siege walls, except on the north side, on the north end. The siege wall was about 200 feet back of the Calvary Scarp. All right, this is the north wall of the quarry that King Solomon cut out of Mount Moriah, that the temple was built on, to build the temple and to build other buildings in Jerusalem. All right, this is the same scarp that has the face of the skull on it, and the same scarp that has the tomb, the sepulcher in it. All right, this scarp is just honeycombed with caves and tunnels. I mean, this thing, you know, you think of Indiana Jones and his Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's some snakes in there and some worms, stinging worms, and a few spiders and things to add excitement. But anyway, in one of these chambers in there, there's a stone box, a large, heavy stone box that's 5 feet long, 3.5 feet wide, and back of it, there's some gold furniture. All right, all of this was carried through a door that was cut in the face of the cliff after a chunk of the cliff had been split off by an earthquake. The people did it themselves when they hid this. They laid this back, cut a doorway out, carried this stuff in, put timbers over it, filled the rest of it full of stones, backed out and shoved this slab back up and filled in behind it. So when you look at it, it just looks like a crack. All right? So in that chamber, I would stake my life on the fact that the Ark of the Covenant is in that stone box.
Now, how you really got me here. How do you know this? And I mean, have you seen it?
I've seen the stone box. I haven't seen the Ark of the Covenant. Okay.
Okay, you've seen the stone box and the,
Yes.
and the gold chairs, I think you said, and so forth. Would you see it through a crack in the wall?
No, I've been right in the chamber. I've been on top of this. Over the years, there may be earthquakes or whatever. The stones that they filled it with have settled down about 18 inches, so you can crawl through there. And so I pushed some stones out of the way, and I got down to the top of a gold, probably a chest. I'm not sure, because all I could see was the top, and I photographed this. All right, and the big question probably is, why didn't you get it out?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Okay. Now, at the time I was there, if anybody are looking for this, if anybody would have told me that I wouldn't get it out if I found it, I would have, you know, I'd have said ridiculous. But when I found it on the day just before it was time for me to catch the plane back. I was out of money, and the people that owned the property had asked me to be finished. And I had no money. I had no means of getting this out, so I had permission from the Israeli government to excavate here, of course, and I had a promise from God that I would find it that trip. Okay. So in my simple mind, I equated that with getting it out. So when it became obvious that I wasn't going to get it out, I sat down there in that chamber and cried. I mean, I was in debt. The IRS was saying that my business was a hobby, and you know, just many little problems there. And so I wept. I said, Lord, you promised me I'd get this out. Now, I'm sure that most people who have prayed know what the presence of the Holy Spirit feels like. It just comes down over you. And so this big impression got me in both ears. Says, no, I promised you you would find it. It'll come out when the time is right. Okay. So God has all of these things on a time schedule. Okay. And it's not going to fall behind. Everything will happen right on schedule. And it's not time for the ark to be out yet. But we're planning to go after it along in September.
This is exciting.
Okay.
In September of this year, you're going to go back.
Yes.
Now the person that owns the property, are you going to be allowed to take it out? I mean, will the government, the Israeli government, confiscate it, or what's the procedure?
I work with the Israeli government, and when I get it out, they will come and help us get it out, and it's theirs. It's not mine.
Okay.
I wouldn't even attempt to steal it. I don't steal anything. Because,
Right.
you know, we're not supposed to do that as Christians. Okay. Now, the beauty of this ark, the little story that goes along with it, in Psalm 77:13, it says, "Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary." Okay. On the Day of Atonement, which is the equivalent to the Great Judgment Day that we're looking forward to, the goat that represented Christ as the sin bearer was killed. Its blood was carried into the most holy place, sprinkled on the mercy seat. All right. This chamber is right beneath the cross hole with 3 cutouts in the stone face here, where I believe the signs that said Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, were placed. This is right beneath that. And it appears that when Christ died as the sin bearer, that his blood was shed near the mercy seat.
So he was right above it.
Right.
Wow. That is something else. That is exciting. I'd love to get back with you.
That can be arranged.
Okay. Well, right now we have a song that's ready. Nancy White's ready to sing for us, and she is going to sing the Star Spangled Banner. So if you haven't heard it in a while, sit back and just enjoy it. Nancy White.
Twilight's last gleaming, hues of stripes and white stars.
was beautiful.
Yes,
beautiful.
very good.
Hey. All right. Happy birthday,
America.
Nashville.
Yes.
Nashville, America. Nashville,
Nashville.
USA.
Yes.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Nancy. Well, we're back with Ron Wyatt. And Ron, we've only got, I guess, a couple minutes left in the program now. And we were talking about the Ark. And I was asking you off camera, and I want to ask you again. Okay, when you go back to dig it out, now you're going to have the Israeli government there. So this will be done under the auspices of the Israeli government. Right. And after you take it out and the artifacts out, well, then it'll go to, I guess, a museum or...
The Dead Sea Scrolls, they built a special place to exhibit them. And the actual Dead Sea Scrolls are somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, about 300 feet down in solid rock, stored. Okay,
I see.
They have copies of them in this special place over here, so I assume that there'll probably be a copy of the Ark of the Covenant made, and that it will be probably put with these. And I'm sure that as anxious as they are to find this or get it, that they will, take some special pains to take care of it and also to display it. This is why I like to work with the Israelis. When they find something or if they have something, they share it with people. Some people, they like to, shall we say, some countries you can't even get into as a tourist to see things that you would like to see.
One thing I would like to ask you, and this is off the subject to a degree, but the temple. The temple, is the temple being rebuilt?
Well, there's a school of thought that says it will be. Personally, I don't think so.
You don't think the temple will be rebuilt?
I think that's unlikely.
Well, I know one school of thought says that the temple will be rebuilt, and that I suppose the Ark will be brought back into the temple. Is that?
Well, this is one school of thought that this will happen. They have found some of the foundations of Solomon's temple there. They're not where they thought they would be. They're south and west of where they expected to find them. And so it's possible that the temple can be rebuilt without doing any damage to the Dome of the Rock. Now that
mosque.
Right, to the Mosque of Omar or the Dome of the Rock. Now that is a beautiful piece of architecture, beautiful. It would be, a terrible shame for that to be destroyed or defaced in any way, and it is not necessary. They can rebuild the temple without doing that. But my own personal feeling is that this probably won't happen. I believe that there's too many people too frightened of the Israelis, and with the oil situation being what it is, we have to, shall we say, accommodate the Arab states to some degree. And while the Israelis are very brisk in their defense and they have created an image of doing what they want to do, they are limited when it comes to realities, because they are dependent on the Arab states for their own oil to a great extent, and they're dependent on America for defense. Now, of course, this is politics, but they seem to be the only real deterrent in the area to keep Syria and some of these northern powers from just sweeping right down through there. Right. And
let me ask you this. Okay, back to the Ark again in the remaining minute we have.
Right.
Okay, what do you expect to find inside?
Well, I expect to find the tables of stone that the Ten Commandments are written on in the finger of God.
Do you think that they will be intact, or do you think they'll be dust or eroded, or what?
They will be intact. I'm certain of this.
Wow, that is exciting. Yes. What else? Anything else?
There's quite a list of furnishings of the temple. Now, in 2 Kings 25, there's a list of the furnishings of the temple that Nebuchadnezzar carried to Babylon. Okay. Now, in that list, the table of showbread is missing. The candlesticks are missing. The altar of incense is missing, and the Ark of the Covenant. All right. Also, if they carried these large objects out, there's many things that were dedicated to God and put in the temple. Now, this sounds a little wild, but David dedicated Goliath's sword and it
So
was
it's possible to have a sword in there also?
It's possible.
Is it the size that would hold all these things?
The chamber is 12 foot wide and 22 feet long. So there's room for a lot.
We've got a lot more to talk about, but they're telling me
We're going to have
right
them
at
back.
time.
We're going to talk about those giants too.
Yeah.
And there are trees in Egypt to build that thing
There are
for
trees
the
in
pyramids.
There
They
was-
told me that. So
Okay.
Forests in Egypt at the time they were built.
All right.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate you being here.
Yes.
And we want to have you back. If we don't get to go with you, but at least we want to have you back after it's over with.
Yes.
And we want to thank Ann and Nancy and everyone for watching tonight. It's all we have. Remember, the Lord is coming. Maranatha.
Maranatha.